Well, welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming to this exciting panel, hopefully.
Making promises.
We will, where we will be specifically talking about knife theory. Quick, just throw up hands. Who knows about knife theory and tabletop role-playing games?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, since none of us raised our hands, it's going to be a great panel.
Oh, jeez. Oh, wait, I was supposed to raise my hand.
There's audience plans, actually.
Oh, professional panelists.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay,
Yeah.
so knife theory, for those of you who do not know it, as well as my fellow panelists who might not know the exact wording of it, but I guarantee you've all used it many, many times. The idea behind knife theory, which I believe was proposed originally by a Reddit user by the name of JBaby.
Science.
Reddit username.
Huh.
Fortunately, it was a nice one. I didn't have to say something that had to get bleeped out. The idea behind it, for the most part, is in tabletop role-playing games, as players craft their characters, there's moments that you can craft, usually in your backstory, but it can also be in-game, and we'll get into that as well, where there will be specific moments, specific things in a backstory that the player crafts, usually alongside with the GM. And the term knife, I believe, the knifeiness of it, came about because of the idea that the player is making something that they then hand to the GM, for the GM to then stab them with later, is the idea. Much like, me setting up a lab coat joke at the beginning of this, and at some point later, one of them will feign death.
Being murdered!
I will not be able to save them because I'm not a doctor, I'm a scientist.
It's what happens when someone hands me a letter opener, where I'm like, oh, I know I will stab myself with this later.
Yes.
Yeah. Chekhov's dice.
Chekhov's dice.
Chekhov's dice. That's good.
So, now that I've primed the audience, I want to go through the awesome people we have here to let you know that hopefully we know what we're talking about. We started there.
Hopefully.
With that person.
I will say, right before we get in, because we still have more people coming in, if people could if you have rows empty in front of you, if you don't mind just moving up.
Forward.
Yeah, make it as easy as
Make
possible
a
for
friend.
people coming in.
Or don't.
Yeah.
I'm your dad.
This is La Daddy.
Yeah.
Thank you all, I really appreciate it. So, my name is Owan, the Dungeon Meowster. I've been a professional game master for 5 or 6 years now, with Goblins and Growlers primarily. I do a lot of, I started with Dungeons & Dragons, raising money for cats, sanctuaries, and TNR relief, and that's the Dungeon Meowster. Since then, I've done lots of other charity work and podcasts and run 150 games for local businesses a year and whatever else. Yeah, all the things. That's me.
Small.
Oh my god,
We're taking all the slaps out of the universe.
Next up.
Hi, my name's Noah, aka my lawyer friend. I'm a lawyer, but I'm a cool lawyer. I'm not a rules lawyer. I can be a rules lawyer if I need to. And I represent content creators and tabletop creators across a wide spectrum of things. So, publishing companies, I represent like these people, and I also write myself. I have an actual play podcast called Forgotten Paths, which is an amnesia thing. Yeah! Woo! You're the best.
That woo is out of the universe.
Yeah, cool. And I generally work with a lot of live streaming creators in the D&D space. So.
Was that the plant you were talking about?
They're not a plant, that's a person.
Oh my god.
When we were packing for the con, a bunch of old flyers for Forgotten Paths. I left them in the storage unit.
I'll have business cards later today with the QR code.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm Brandon. I'm a professional writer, editor, and journalist. I'm one of the co-owners of Goblins and Growlers. Been a professional DM 5-6 years, along with Alon. Run pre-COVID, doing all kinds of games, like 6 times a month in public spaces like breweries and restaurants and things like that. And dipping our feet back into it now. We write all our original content too.
Yeah. Round of applause for these two people.
You write all your original content, I just do bullshit.
Yeah.
I spent hours writing something, and then you
hand
wipe your
it
ass
to me.
with it.
Yeah.
I didn't run a game.
My name is Theo Perez. I'm a professional audio engineer, sound designer. professional game master with these goobers. And I do professional talking sometimes.
So you didn't have names for the professional talker.
That's why I leave it at the end. That's the only thing on my business card, professional talker.
Yeah.
You can't hire me to talk. This is the thing. So now that hopefully we've set up that you can trust us to stab you with knives.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, thank you.
In DC, it's fine.
So, I'll go around because I believe, again, although maybe you are not fully familiar with the verbiage of knife theory, I'm sure all of you have lots of experience doing this with players in all kinds of different tabletop role-playing games. So I'll start here with Brandon, if you want to expand on some of like the general ideas of how you implemented utilizing people's backstories against them.
I won't boil it down to science or anything like that, but it's just like getting, that's why I'm not doing it.
Oh, okay.
But it's just sort of collaboratively telling the story. It's both of you working together. And if a player comes to the table and just expects to be spoon-fed everything, then it's not a collaborative situation. So you always have to work together with them, not make it feel like homework. Sit down at your session 0 and just talk about what do you want to get out of this character. What do you think their arc might be? That kind of thing.
I love that. So setting up expectations with the player.
And what you're going to hear is that a lot of what we're going to talk about today, and frankly over the entire weekend, comes down to communication with the table. Figuring out, okay, you are coming to this table because you want to create a story with me and with everybody else. Obviously, we have some people out there that's like, no, I just want to play this angry barbarian and do as much damage as possible. That's fine. That's how you play. But a lot of people want to create a collaborative story, have those cathartic moments, because everybody's like, oh yeah, critical role. And so you see how amazing that stuff goes, and you're like, I want to experience that. So you want to enjoy yourself at the table. So working with knife theory and building that collaboration with your players in your session 0 allows you to weave stories together. And oftentimes when you're doing that session 0 and your players are saying, hey, I have this cathartic moment that I think could really make a character change for me. Perhaps like you, speaking specifically about D&D 5e right now, if you have a paladin and they're Oath of Vengeance paladin, and then all of a sudden they become Oathbreaker paladin because they just couldn't carry out the vengeance. That could be their moment. And that could come from another player at the table. It could be something where 2 players create something. You as the GM, don't do nothing except set it up. It's amazing. So having those kinds of moments where you're collaborating and working with other people is incredibly important. It can really give you that catharsis that we're all kind of looking for when we're getting into this escape, this game.
I like these catharsis.
Yeah.
The scientific word.
Yeah.
I am primarily, for the last half decade, every game I've run has been pretty much a one-shot. I get hired, I do a lot of stage performances, I do things like games, always one-shot. So if you're a one-shot or small, short campaign person, these are my things for you. A lot of times people don't build out very backstories for that. And if they do, I'm actually a little sad because you're like, oh, I'm not going to be able to pay off all the work that you put into this in this short of a session. But for those shorter games, I think what's really awesome about the concept of knife theory and how you execute it is I come from an improv comedy background. Anyone who's from an improv background or just watched Whose Line or shows like that, there's a thing called an offer in improv, and it's where you basically take a thing, a concept, whatever. It could just be a knife. You say, I put a knife on the table, and you leave it, and you walk away. And that is an offer to the other players or the GM to take it if they want to. It's there. It's an offer. People can then build on that offer. So the knives that are happening for short one shots and things like that are a lot of times in-game offers. So being open to, as a GM, your players giving you that offer and you doing your best to pay it off. My example would be if somebody my player put a knife on that table, I would later want to use that knife in some way, whether against them as somebody comes in and throws it, or even in their favor, somebody's like, oh, this is a very sharp knife, and I happen to be a chef, and I will trade you, or whatever. Paying off offer that your player has given you, and then as a GM, and then as a GM, just making those offers so your players can find a way to use their backstory or their character concept in your game.
Yeah, and I think it's important just to tack on to what you're talking about is to think of things in terms of shorter campaigns, not necessarily one shots. The average D&D campaign for grown-ass adults lasts about 6 sessions before it falls apart due to ever-present scheduling problems. So spending days crafting this detailed, intricate Talmudic origin for a character is kind of not a good use of everybody's time. You want to just start hitting out some bullet points so you can do like Alana's saying, and just smack something down on the table when the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. If as a GM, I take a note card when I run my games, and every concept that I do on that game or everything that happens, I keep it on one note card. That's always my goal. Because that's about as much as I can process. You might have much more processing power than me and be able to do 2 note cards or more. But I've had many concussions, so 1 is my limit. And I highly recommend that because it helps you to have those payoffs. Hopefully not a lot, but enough where everybody feels like they are collaboratively building that story.
And you might also find that your knives, just as Alana and Brendan were saying, are offered in the course of your campaign. Say you didn't think of it until session 0, but something that's coming along in the campaign, you say, oh my god, this would be an amazing idea. Let's talk either your player that's talking to your GM, or the GM talking to the player saying, I just have an amazing idea about where your character could go. Let's take a look at your backstory, see if this is something that could work. Do you trust me is the question. And obviously having the communication is going to build that trust. And so you can build them through a longer campaign. For example, I just wrapped up a 126 session campaign that was started during COVID. It was a lot. And it was something where it was an amnesia campaign, which is kind of like my thing, which is basically your players start not knowing who they are, where they are, or what they're doing. They literally figure out their species in class as they go along, which is just insane. As a GM, I call it power. And so we build these stories as we go along there, and it's listening to where the person wants to take their character once they figure out who they are, and figuring out the knife that is there, and how you can incorporate that and have really cathartic moments.
One of the things I like to do, there's a fail-forward system. It's like a 1d6 system that I really like. It's called Push, and it's designed by Cesar Papaque, Brazilian game designer. And it's the whole concept behind it is your character sheet is not numerically based. It's focused on like traits, bonds, all this kind of stuff. And you can just write, for like, I don't know, like trait, like Acolyte is the Northern Shore. You don't have to know what that means. The other players don't have to know what that means. And then as the game goes along, if you find a good spot to fit that in, you'll be like, oh, this is what this means. Okay, so now we're going to move the story forward this way. So when you're coming up with that stuff, you don't even have to know what it is. You just want to have something in your pocket that you can put out there and play.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue into some of the aspects, the 2 large ways, and we've talked about this, to implement knife theory or offers, as the idea originally came from the idea of offers in improv, or theater in general. The 2 general ways is in your backstory, in the character creation, whether it's something that you just wrote down as an idea, which I do that a lot. I'm not the best when I make characters. I usually just like fill in stats and then write a bunch of notes, and then I forget that I have spells until the first session and I'm scrambling. But I'll write stuff and I have an idea of where it might go, or I have no idea where it might go, but I have just things written down that are aspects of the characters or things that could have happened in the character's backstory. And then the other half is in-game, whether it's the player giving something or the GM giving something, that can then be turned or twisted. And Alon gave a great example of how it doesn't necessarily have to end in combat all the time.
Rarely does.
Sometimes you just meet a nice chef. It's a great moment. They're also wearing a lab coat.
Sometimes you meet a nice chef and you say, hey, can you please cook me a meal? I'm so hungry.
That's exciting. But typically, to lean more into the character creation aspect of it for a moment, the original concept behind knife theory usually covers things like
tragic moments, deaths, flaws, utilizing again with like the 5e character sheets, they have the ideals, bonds, and flaws portion on it.
Their boxes are too small.
They are a lot. They're very small unless you're going to be doing bullet points.
They're very
what I
small,
do.
which makes it convenient for nobody using them ever.
Yeah. Well, and so that's sort of the my personal journey with utilizing that portion of the character sheet has come more into the aspect of like, what are the small bullet points that you can then pull from as a player later, type of thing. Because it can work into your backstory. I don't always write a backstory for my characters. Sometimes I really do just like, I have a character that in one game that just formed as a being moments before the adventure started. They have very little backstory.
That's cool.
It's a weird concept, and I'm having to. I talked to the GM about it. I'm having to create knives and things to engage my character emotionally into this adventure as we're going.
As they're figuring out what emotions are.
Yes.
That's cool.
Actually, yes. That's a big thing.
Created computer data.
Yes. That's actually I did watch some Star Trek to pull that from you. I really enjoy that character. But typically, when creating knives in your backstory for the GM, and if you are going to do the metaphorical legwork of actually writing up a backstory for your character, whether literally or just in your brain, it's good. I think that the interwebs, as I have pulled, recommends about like a good like 7-ish knives, because that will usually give the opportunity for the GM to pick from amongst them a couple that are going to show up, because you can for sure craft a knife that's like, oh yeah, my character just hates his dad, it's just a thing, and the GM's like, cool, that might come up. But then you say, my character also had a dream where his mother turned into a dragon, and you're like, whoa, that sounds more fun. I think I'll pick that one,
Yeah.
type of thing. And so crafting like somewhere in that realm. Now, I'm gonna toss this across here. We're gonna see something nice. What are good examples of knives?
Ooh, can I start that one up?
Please.
Yeah, so I actually had what I like to think of as kind of like an inverted knife.
Okay.
So obviously,
It's like a pocket knife.
yeah, exactly. It's a knife that went backwards. No, I'm just kidding. And emotionally hit the GM. But no. So one of my characters was having a lot of trouble coming up with the knives. And this is actually throughout that podcast. We were trying to figure out, okay, what is this character's journey going to be? Where do they want to go? We were recording for season 2, and I said, what is your character story in season 2, based on what you know about them so far? And he said, okay, well, there's this, and this. And I was like, okay, you're giving me a lot of what you know about your character. Well, where do you want them to go? And he's like, I don't know. So what I did was I looked at what he had, and then I found the empty spaces, where he said, hey, actually she said in this one, she said, hey, I know this about this person, but I don't know anything about myself. So in season 2, this person found out that they were married. Yeah, which was a space that they hadn't gone, and they didn't know that they could go there. And so finding that inverted space where like they know everything else, but they don't know where to hand me the knife, I said, okay, well, you created this hole for me to the knife in, so let's just do it. It's hilarious. So,
And a less
Marriage
hilarious.
is hilarious.
yeah, marriage.
And a less hilarious, but
Oh, God.
just as effective example. In the podcast I'm part of, Critical Role, available wherever podcasts are available. I play a triple multi-class guy who's like an over-the-hill professional wrestler, and I based him on like 1970s Southern wrestlers, like Dusty Rhodes and stuff. So he had like a real amorous past once upon a time, and I was really getting on the GM's nerves, and apparently a lot of the audience's nerves too. So she pulled the GM, pulled this thread from his amorous past as a young, cocky wrestler. That now all of a sudden I've got children that I didn't know about who are 20-something years old, and some of them work for the like enemy factions that we're dealing with,
Oh,
and
God.
so it's become just an exercise in me avoiding my responsibilities as a father and a human being, which is
Classic wrestler.
yeah, I mean, really, like Jake the Snake or something. But it's less a knife in the back and more like a giant chainsaw in my back right now, because it's taken a character who's traditionally been carefree and jovial and forced him to confront some uncomfortable truths about his life.
And that's how you experience growth as a player and as a GM. That's how
Also
you.
as a game.
Yeah.
But we're talking about games.
Yeah.
I'm a fairly obtuse person in how I like to approach storytelling. I really like to try to make it weird. It's so much fun for me. So as far as like my knives, I really love having characters who come from like very well supported families who are just like, yeah, you pursue your dreams. We'll do whatever we can to help you. And I like really having them be like this like kind of happy-go-lucky.
You're like a sitcom character that never has to worry about money.
I love it.
No side boys.
I really love doing that, and I love instead that their knives are just like they're just weird. They struggle with certain aspects of like of life. Maybe they don't have a perspective that can sit in. And I really love. Sometimes it's a little like you can lean into the too real, but I also really love to lean into like the surreal and being like. Yeah, like I think that like I had a character. I don't play player characters often, so when I do, I play farmers. 10 in every stat and an 11 somewhere, and I'm like, 11 in charisma. This is the best looking farmer you've ever seen. And I really enjoy doing that and having them be like, yeah, I came from the farm and I was well supported. My family loved me. I had both my parents, and I left on a quest, and they gave me this rake, and then there's all the like characters around, and I enjoy then being like. Yeah, as the GM, doing the GM notes, if you have that, or as things develop, and being like, having like, I struggle with understanding how people grow. I can water a person, and I can give them have them just completely not understand a core mechanic of how the world works on a fundamental level, or even have them just be like. I did too much psychedelics, and I struggle with if this is reality or something.
There was one of my favorite knives, also from the podcast Critical Role, that you created for Johannes. Your character was very early on. Like there's the setup in the podcast where there's the metallic and chromatic dragons, the big dividing factions within the world, and set up very early on that Johannes does not know enough to tell the difference between a metallic and chromatic dragon.
Jesus.
I love them all.
And so it's just like, hey, there's a dragon. We work for this, right? And then he goes up and starts talking.
We're trying to bring those back.
Yeah, we found one, and it's like a giant blue dragon that might eat him, kind of thing. And just like that little setup right there is such a beautiful knife, because then not only does it cause something potentially of change towards the character, but it does move the entire adventure forward.
Yeah.
Sometimes in a left sort of angle.
It's fun to give ones to your DM too that are like little things, like I don't know how money works or something.
Yeah.
And that for the most part, it's not really going to affect anything. It's just like a little laughter right there. But at any time, your GM could be like, wait a second. He doesn't know how money works. We could really cripple the party with this.
One of the more fun ones that you see in popular media is the Adventure Zone. Who's familiar? Cool. Just making sure. It's a small podcast. But in the original Balance series, the character of Taco has a quest to learn how to make tacos, because tacos don't exist in that world. And that is literally 7 knives that they gave the GM literally early on in that. And that's the weird stuff that you can do that later will come around and, no spoilers here, but actually dramatically change the campaign.
I'm not saying don't have your family members die horrible deaths. do whatever makes you happy. I mean,
All about that catharsis.
Yeah. But I really love, and maybe it's just because I've been DMing for so long and so many different types of players, I really love just being just trying to find something that's strange. Yeah.
Yep.
Something strange.
Something strange.
Just a little bit of strange.
So with that, sort of building off of the idea of something strange, in the design of characters, now moving more to the GM perspective, and I already touched on this a bit, but there are a lot of moments where the players are creating knives, and they're hanging, and some of them might be very big, very impactful things. Some of them might be very small things. But as a GM, it is your responsibility to use them carefully, I would say. Handle knives carefully in real life and metaphorically.
Whoa.
That's real good.
Yeah. Good knife discipline. Because, and this is something I guess we can really briefly touch on this, the concept of bleed, which ironically was really well timed.
Knife theory is real.
Knife theory is real. Hands up really quick, everyone who is familiar with the concept of bleed in tabletop or in role-playing games in general.
And actually, hands up really quick if you're not familiar with that bleed. And now hands up if you don't like to raise your hand. There you go!
And if you're anemic,
Hold on, wait.
what?
Bleed in its simplest form is the idea that aspects of whatever character you're role-playing, emotions, feelings, are going to bleed into you. And aspects of you are going to bleed into your character.
And that's why I now have several 20-year-old illegitimate children.
Allegedly!
Allegedly.
This is being recorded!
So, do you have a question?
I'm sorry, I completely misread that question. I thought you were talking about bleed damage.
No.
Oh, yeah.
That's already fair.
All the
Appreciate
above.
it. We'll come back to that. Bleed. The idea of bleed in role playing specifically is that intangible barrier between you and the character that you're creating sometimes gets thinner, and aspects will bleed over. Okay, really briefly, let's just go across. We'll start with Milan and come back this way.
Bleed for me.
Let's bleed for me. What are some examples that you have seen, especially I would say in your experience as a very brief one-shot GM, that you've seen aspects of bleed come through, both from the player to the character or the character to the player?
Yeah, I really like to run. When I get to run a game that's just like, I'm not running it for recording or most public consumption, I like to go really weird. Wow, crazy concept. So sometimes I really like to challenge the reality, the boundaries. I think one of the coolest things about role-playing games and tabletop games in general, especially like a lot of indie systems that allow you to really lean in on like what is being human or whatever. Like some of these like grandiose questions that you can then make really silly in the game, but also like a little too real. I love that, but there is a piece of like I have to have like a 30-minute to hour reset moment after games, and a lot of times my players do. We just sit there with like a beverage and just talk about the game and like how it went, especially if we're playing characters that are like far reaches from ourselves. And I think that sometimes it's really fun. Sometimes it's like it's cathartic. Sometimes it's like you're like sad. I mean, if you're really like trying to be emotionally invested. But I know there's also a flip side of it too, because I used bleed unintentionally when I was a kid, first getting into tabletop games, and I wanted to be cool so bad. And now I'm so I wanted to be cool so bad, and I was in my Latin teacher's basement, and we couldn't talk about it to anybody, even though it was just tabletop role-playing games. It sounds so much more sinister now. But,
It does.
But it was one of those things where like I played a character. I don't know. I'm a big metalhead. I came up playing in lots of metal bands and stuff like that. There's this guitarist Yari Meiba, who's the guitarist for Winter Sun and also a bunch of other bands. And I thought that this guy was the coolest guy in the whole world. He had like flowing blonde hair, could just rip and shred. And now I'm like, oh, I just had a crush on him, but when you're young, you don't know that.
Yeah.
And so I named my rogue Yari Meiba, and I was like, oh, he's cool. And he can talk to people and knows how to do it. And one of the cool aspects of Bleed is that as I played this character, I actually got more confident with like who I wanted to be as a person, and got to like use that to move to where I'm at now. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I like love tabletop and do what I do. But That's two sides of bleed.
Thanks, Jerry Neighbor.
Yeah, thank you, Dari. If you see this, I swear, please contact me. I'll do anything for Winter Sun.
At the Dungeon Master.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it was not as wholesome as that. And again, Ground Pass podcast available wherever you can get podcasts.
Jari.
But as a GM, I have my GMPC, which is my own character in the game that allows me to be part of it. Name is Sabishi. Sabishi is a panda warrior, and he is. That sounds really intense, but he's not. He's just like a really good cook too, and he loves to cook muffins for people. And when I created Sabishi, he's a big old lovable character, and he gets really emotional with like these people that he is technically their prison warden. Yeah, it's a whole thing. You should listen to the podcast. And so he was bringing the muffins and stuff like that, and I literally started to bake more for my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, oh, that's a really nice thing to do. And then I just started to bake more. My wife was like, my wife's allergic to gluten, and I wasn't making gluten-free stuff. And she was like, I can't eat any of this. Can you stop being ceviche? And I was like, oh shit, I'm just doing it. So nothing sad though. Yeah, well, that's good.
It will come. It will.
I mean, I think she might have been sad that she couldn't eat any of your muffins.
Well,
I think
I'm
He
just saying,
said nothing sad yet as he signs the divorce paper.
The knife has been set.
Yeah. For me, like I would typically play rogues or bards, and I didn't start stealing and I didn't start singing. But playing bards did sort of help boost my confidence in terms of public speaking, because it gave me the confidence to go and like teach some classes at the Commonwealth University, which is really the first time that I've done sort of public speaking. It's kind of the reason that I'm comfortable enough doing this right now, and like it's helped me a lot in sort of my management career and stuff like that. So that's one thing. The other side of it is the other side of bleed is something you kind of have to look out for, and it's something I've had to pay more and more attention to as we've been running public games that are essentially pickup games for strangers.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people tend to use bleed in the negative way of using your character as an outlet for socially unacceptable, things that you believe, misogyny, racism, all kinds of things like that. Yeah. And you, as the game runner, have to look out for that and just kind of shut it down. We've had to kick people out of games because they were just like, well, it's what my character would do.
I will say too, like one of the things that was popular maybe 7 years ago on tabletop was like these evil campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna say don't run an evil campaign.
they're making a comeback.
Are they really? I'm not gonna say don't run an evil campaign, but I played in one, and it was one of those things where like I think that there is. I don't know. What I love about tabletop. What I learned from that is what I love about tabletop is you live in a fantasy world, and that fantasy world doesn't have to have bullshit that you deal with in real life and like evil things. You can leave a lot of that behind, and in fact, I honestly, very, very truly, to my core believe you should. But if you are in any space where any of that is engaged, make sure. I mean, obviously, that you talk about it beforehand and are comfortable, but also make sure that you're checking in on with yourself during as well. I know a really good example of that. We run lots of lots of like horror games privately, and we have a friend, Josh, who's also a Goblin Growlers person we're running a game for.
If you want to be Josh, you can go to our booth over in the vendor hall.
Oh my god! And he's a great person. And I'll tell you something not to bring up with him, which is auto cannibalism, which he thought he was fine with, but it came up in the game, and I know, it's weird. We're weird people. What are you doing? And so he found out real time that he's not okay with that. It wasn't in the lines and Dale's discussion, which we can talk about another time. Those very important safety tools that we're really grateful tabletop has. So if you're ever trying to like push the boundaries of what tabletop can be, obviously have those discussions beforehand, but also have those check-ins real time, and then also have that like decompression time afterwards. It's really important.
Yeah, and here's the thing about bleed, and also the knife theory, is that it can be really useful. It can be a way to help make everybody a little bit more comfortable at your table, because you can say, hey, I'm comfortable with you going here on this. It's a great exercise in that, but also, but also one thing that I do want to caution is having knives that your characters, or as a player, that you are too attached to
Yeah.
can be a problem, because then you as the GM are trying to force it. The player is trying to force it. And if you create knives that you were just like, this has to happen, it's going to create discord, not like the app, but like discord within your group. And that's not good. And that opens up some emotional range where you will experience bleed from other things.
One more thing on bleed, just
Yeah.
real quick, if you don't mind. If as somebody who's done a lot of therapy and needed it, I'm very grateful for it. I'm not gonna say everybody needs it, but I think everybody needs it.
Everybody
But
needs therapy.
as somebody who's done a lot, tabletop is not your therapy space.
No.
Yeah, please don't use it as such. If you have some really close friends, you can talk about using it in ways that do augment therapy. But please find a therapist, find a professional. If you're trying to explore things because you have trauma with them or things like that, don't. Some people I know have tried to do that through tabletop rather than through a professional, and unless the person running your game is a professional and this is the way that they engage it, which I know is a thing. Are you one of those people? Yes! You're my heckin' hero.
I was about to say, I literally know therapists that do
Yeah,
that.
and I know that it is a thing. I know, and we're lucky that we've been able to help with some, but yeah, it's not your therapy space unless it is your therapy space.
Unless it very specifically is.
Yeah.
It definitely isn't.
It is not your therapy space without consent.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, even then, have a professional.
So, yeah, building off of that, and to sort of our last points, and then we'll go to some questions. There are a lot of aspects that, as players, I think you just mentioned that sometimes players will create characters that they are very attached to. And the reason I brought up the idea of bleed initially was to lead into this, is that there can also be the flip of when a player or even GM creates a character that they really, really love, that means a lot to them, they will want knives to not happen to that character. Yeah. And they will withhold knives. And they will not like when the GM creates a knife and just throws it at them. And that can be okay, again, if everyone is set up for that, but it is something that I've seen so many times. Along with these gurus, I've run several hundred games easily, and I would say probably in just under half of them, I've seen at least one player that really, really loves their character and doesn't want anything bad to happen to them. And this is just a toss from the scientist in me. The word adventure does mean you have to take risks. Yeah. That is the definition of adventure.
That's just science.
That is just science. Now allow that to trickle. Does anyone, do you have any final notes before we hop into
Questions? Oh, I was James. Go.
Oh yeah, cool. I was gonna say on those notes and just kind of reiterate, like, as a player, as a GM, make sure that you are always communicating with the other and with everyone on the table, because communication, lawyer, hold on for a second. Communication helps you understand all of the terms of engagement. And I always have a saying that I give to my clients is that contracts save friendships. So if you have that social contract of, I am not going to make you uncomfortable, and you're not going to make me uncomfortable, and we're all going to have fun and make a story together, then you're going to be friends. If you don't do that, you're going to lose friends. And that's bad, right?
you could describe that.
You know you will. Yeah. And so that is always to say, work collaboratively with people at your table. Like, you have a story that is really important to you that you want to tell as a player, let your GM know early.
Yeah.
Not right before the finale. And as the GM, if you have a story that you know, like, hey, I'm not going to be able to incorporate this knife. There are literally no dragons in this universe, and you want to become a dragon. Actually, that could work. But like, say there is an impossibility, then you communicate that to the player, so they're not like waiting, like, is this it? Is this it? And that way you have a more collaborative.
Like for instance, it's something that could be more in the realm of an impossibility, because as you just illustrated, if you are a prepared GM, you can create,
You can do anything.
you can make almost anything there. But if, like Alon was saying, you have a world where something like slavery just isn't a thing, and it's not gonna be a thing, and a character wants that as part of the backstory, like that, well, no, it's not gonna be a thing. You can set that up in the session 0, it's not gonna be a thing in this session.
But what about indentured? No,
Get out of here, lawyer.
Someone would go there.
yeah.
That's sort of a more direct angle on what I was talking about, and this is something I've learned in my management career. How many of you heard the phrase like you're the CEO of your own life, you're the CEO of your own career? Like, yeah. So you have to, as like a player or a GM, you have to look at yourself like that. And every organization, and whether you like it or not, your gaming group is an organization. Every organization lives and dies by the expectations.
Right.
The prime cause for failure in any kind of project or undertaking or anything like that is poor, incomplete, or there's no expectations set at the outset. That's why session 0s are so important. You just need to lay it all out there. Some people are going to like it, some people aren't. Some people are going to be like, this isn't for me, I'm going to fail. But that means after everything's filtered through the sieve, everybody who's there knows why they're there and they know the goal they're working for. So just to be very clear, have sort of a global management level perspective, even if you're not the GM, about how your group is coming together, and just sort of take control and make sure expectations, everybody's aligned.
The whole idea behind that theory is that you are setting up what you are willing to have happen to your character. So now, if anyone has any questions, I'll take a deep breath. Let it out. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand at this time. Alon, would you like to take your?
I'm going to hand a key off to somebody.
Okay, do that.
I literally, it was funny because you guys literally like went this way.
Yes.
It was a way.
So, yeah. We will repeat the questions for the audio, by the way.
Okay. When developing knives or story arcs for Swiss players, how do you do it in such a way that it doesn't spoil what happens?
So when developing knives for somebody with the player, how do you do it in such a way that it's not going to spoil the campaign or spoil that surprise, that kind of thing? That's a great question.
Yes.
So you can kind of keep it a little bit more generalized. So that's where, beginner knives, such as flaws, ideals, bonds on your character sheet, if you're using the 5e system, kind of come into play. But having that moment of generally of, hey, you know what? I don't know where my dad is, or whatever. That allows the GM to be creative with it. If you want to have a very specific turn of events, it might be that knife is not for you. Because if you want something to specifically happen, then you are subverting the rest of the table. And so the idea is to work collaboratively, give general things of I think that this would be really cool. And that's why you also give multiple knives. Because you're not going to hit all 7. You're going to hit 4. Something like that.
Yeah, I had a player in Adventure who that character's parent was a werewolf, and so the person was born a werewolf. I was saying, but did not like that. The dad was like a very evil person, and they became also a sort of werewolf hunter, and there was that vampire hunter kind of thing, werewolf hunter, which was really cool, and it's set up really nicely. But this player told me later on that they really wanted a confrontation with their father. Good, it might happen, type of thing. And so in that, where it's no, I got you. I picked up the knife. Trust me, I might stab you with it later. But I instead created a small storyline where the player actually had to go against other werewolf hunters and be on the back pedal for a while before it culminated in "ta-da, it was your dad all along," kind of thing.
And another thing that I'll throw out there, unless you don't.
No.
Okay. Is you can also take a look at, maybe that knife is not something you use in this particular campaign, but if you have a series of campaigns set in the same arc, this is long playing kind of stuff. For example, in one of my campaigns I ran a few years ago, I had a character that accidentally created a gun.
Classic.
And then in the next campaign with the same group of people, literally a year later, it was all about how guns had proliferated in the world. And that character was like, holy shit, yeah. I was like, yeah, that's right, we did it. So that's something that you can kind of play something too.
Congratulations, you made war.
Yeah, you made war, you dick.
I gave an NPC a gun once, and he crit failed on the first roll. It exploded, and then my players were like, "It's a suicide machine," because they had no other concept of what it was. Yeah.
Don't touch it.
Yeah.
I had just a recommendation once.
Speak up just a little bit.
Recommendation for
Yeah.
people who need guidance.
Yeah.
The GURPS system is actually what I started with, the generic universal role-playing system.
Oh, yeah.
They have incentivized disadvantages. So basically,
Right.
you take physical, mental, or social disadvantages, and you get points to add positive traits specifically. So you're basically, the GM is like, take some bad stuff so that I can use it later,
Yep.
and you get some perks.
That's how I love playing Crusader Kings.
So repeat that for the audio.
Well, wait, but there's so we're talking about different systems and how they actually incentivize, especially outside of 5e, being able to create characters with knives. GURPS is a great example. I know I always forget the exact word order, but Wheel of Fire is also really awesome. Flaming Wheel, I can never remember exactly how it's
Some biblical thing.
It's a wheel that's on fire, and it's it's sicking bears on children before it ascends to heaven. There's almost like so many indie systems are really good about like in your character creation, rather than just having a little tiny section to have your your SWOT analysis for your character. Actually building it out.
Thank you for that.
GURPS.
You were next? Yep, I remember that. And hold on, the people that are over here that raised their hands originally too. That's right, yeah, like boom and boom. Cool, thank you.
When you have like a larger table, say you have like 6 players, and each of them have like 7 knives, how are you able to balance it so you're not like throwing more knives at one person one session and other people feel like you're not getting enough knives compared to
My average table size is 8.
Okay.
I usually run 12 at events because people want to play with me and you got to do the thing.
He's popular.
I have gotten really good at accelerating a lot of like, especially combat when it comes to things like that. But when it comes to knives, the key thing is just the whole time. Remember, I have my one no card. This thing. If somebody makes an offer during it, I use the spotlight thing. Essentially, what that is you move the spotlight by saying the character's name and asking them what they're doing in that scene. Especially if they're quieter, it's a really great way to like have them engage with it. So I use the spotlight all the time, and whenever they give me a thing, I write it down, and I'm like, I'm gonna heckin' pay that off no matter what it takes. And so I just try to do that once for everybody. When you have that many players, if you have a long campaign, you're gonna get to 7 knives. If it's a short thing, then just try to get one. Yeah. And it can be little. It can be that the bread is stale. You left it out. Remember in the beginning? Yeah, not stale.
And on that note, like, if you're, get breaded. I don't know. But if you're not doing like that improv thing, if you're doing like a little bit more of a long-form campaign planning, legitimately it's planning. So one of the things that I knew for Forgotten Past, for example, episodes 40 through 44. By the way, we had 46 out and 47 on Monday. Episodes 40 through 44 are, I'll tell you, they're knives episodes. And I have 3 main characters, and it goes payoff, payoff, payoff. Everyone paid off. Profit. It was, and so that kind of longevity in planning is something that I worked on since episode 2 with Doug. And so it kind of sets it up.
Yes. My recommendation for that would be, you can write them down. Just like make a list. I have events where specifically one of my players do have phobias, and so I specifically like wrote them down exactly, and I talked to them about like, okay, but in what context, kind of thing, just so that I knew what to pick for which player, and I could check them off.
I'll just throw this out, another observation from a corporate management perspective. Spreadsheets, man.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Spreadsheets and lists.
Corpo daddy.
Conditional formatting.
Yeah. And also, what's interesting is if you are having those session zeros, you can identify where those knives can overlap. So it'll be like you'll hit multiple people at once, which is what we did in Forgotten Past with episode 45. So 40 through 45 there's a lot going on here. So anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, if people have similar knives, just you can build a pivot table.
Oh, it was what?
A to Z, perfect.
Anyway, yeah.
Hi, so
just wanted to ask, so with a lot of the stuff with the knives, what if the player makes a knife and they give you the offer, you then pay it off, and they just don't really like how it ends up? Where, like,
Okay.
maybe they just didn't write a knife that they really
Yeah.
actually enjoy.
So the question is, what if you have a character who gives you a knife and then you stab them and they're like, yeah. It's like one of those retracting knives.
Yeah.
Happens every time.
Safety
Safety
knife. Exactly. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal, and this is one of those where, like, it's obvious, but it also isn't. You're gonna fail a lot.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm such a good GM is because I've just run through all the mistakes, because I've just been GMing for so many times for so long.
Yeah.
And so I've just failed enough times where a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, like, I know this trick, I'm gonna, but it's gonna happen, and honestly, if your player, if you have that relationship with your player, and they're like, hey, that didn't count the way I did, sit down and talk about it over coffee and be like, how can I pay off better? And you learn from that. But I think it is important to know that there is no universal truth when it comes to how to stab somebody properly. There's so many points on the body.
And also, it's an example of verisimilitude too, because
Big word.
if somebody's like, well, here's a knife that you can stab me with, and you stab them with the knife, and they're like, I do not like the outcome of this knife stabbing that I received. That's life.
Yeah,
That's life, and that's where I
Most
think
people don't.
Yeah, that's where I think you lean into a fail forward kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, you didn't like this immediate outcome, but then how can we lean into that and maneuver ourselves to another place? And that's what you're talking about when you get caught.
And so on that note, like what I was gonna say is it depends on how the quote unquote failure happens. Like if it's just like I didn't really think that through, I don't think about it like that, then it's like, oh, okay, move on. But if it's something where like they're like, you didn't really stab me deep enough, you missed the artery, or something like that, and you're like, oh, okay, rule of three, let's go. You're getting stabbed 3 times.
Yes, I got 2 more.
Exactly.
I always say.
So then just use the same thing.
Yes.
Harder.
They have 3 dads.
Yeah.
Harder.
There's another girlfriend.
There's another girl.
There's a lot of times that you can set it up how you anticipate the player wants, but again, unless expectations were very clearly communicated with exactly what they want, and even in that case, it's not usually how role-playing games work. It can be. It is still a, like, if it didn't hit what they want, you get more opportunities to fight extra knives.
It's collaborative.
Or stab them again with it.
Hopefully during
another
it,
day.
they give you real time feedback too, and you can kind of just.
And honestly, like if the knives just aren't hitting with this person, then they chose really bad knives. You just take the drawer and go, jumping on.
Literally in person.
You need to be toxic. No,
Turns out your father is the lich that summoned the dragon that killed your mom, that ate the city.
And then that's where you got all your illegitimate children.
Yeah.
Who are dead.
Oh no.
And zombies.
Question back there. That guy.
So, what do you do? Because I'm a pretty much better player, and I'm listening to this whole entire thing. I'm realizing the knife I gave my GM for one of our new campaigns. I'm wondering if it's a knife that, while I personally like it,
Yeah.
the other players won't. Not in the sense of like make them uncomfortable, but more from like a plot. I'm basically a shapeshifter spy from another country.
Oh, word.
And
Classic.
yeah, so
Classic.
my race, we're using a lot of third-party content. My race is a race of like spirit people. I look like a tabaxi. I have a human form, and I have a cat form.
Oh.
And basically, I'm from this isolated country where like I was like, I want to see the world. And the Empress is like, you want to see the world, right? Well, you have to do me a favor if you have to go out, and that is, you have to spy on other lands, and you have to come back and tell me what these other countries are doing.
You're a traitor.
But my parents have never been a spy before.
Nope,
His
nope,
parents were
okay.
merchants and mages.
So let's
Well supported.
let's repeat this for the camera. The question is, so I've got a knife that I really like and the GM really likes, but everybody else might not really like it.
There will be a switcheroo.
There will be a switcher-de-doo, and And to summarize, actually, there it's a backseat spirit person that's actually a shapeshifter that's a traitor to the party. Cool. Enjoy that.
You too.
Yari main
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's gonna like it. I mean, you know, you're just gonna have to. You got to figure out a way to set it up into maybe some kind of redemption arc for your character.
Yeah.
Because then that creates tension. Tension creates story, and then you can work through that. And really, like that's bought you like 8 or 9 or 10 sessions of conflict, inter-party conflict.
Jeremy
Right there.
told me when they're gonna stab me.
Oh.
This game.
I hope he never tells you.
I'm gonna be best friends with everybody, and then you know, country's gonna come a calling.
Well, that's what makes betrayal something surprising.
I like that.
If you were just wearing a shirt that said spy, it might not pay off as
I
much.
think the phrase is curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. Yeah, just kind of remember there is that obviously that is something that to me sounds really dope. But at the same time, like there's a world in which your GM might say, okay, this happens. You finish that session as that character, then your character, she goes to the GM and it's run by them from then on. That way they don't split the little playing party.
Time for one more quick question.
Yep.
Yes.
What happens if the player like resolves all of their knives, where it's like their whole thing is like, oh, I'm trying to get revenge on this dude, and then they kill the dude and they get revenge, and they're like, I like to still keep playing them and hang out with the party. But
Man,
like,
maybe
what else do we do
maybe
now?
revenge is unfulfilling.
Yeah, listen to that.
Yeah.
The question is too fulfilling.
The question is, what happens if we resolve all of our knives with a particular character?
So,
I'll say one of the big things in that is sort of what we were talking about in the beginning, or in the middle, rather. The goal is that those knives are like that's your beginning set of knives. You should be continuing to make knives as you go, as you
It's
develop.
a river of knives.
It's a river of
You
knives.
never reach the end.
Yes.
Yeah, it's-
hopefully.
it's
Like
kinda
Bayonetta.
Oh God! It's two things. One is you kind of start off like your basic set, and then like you get the 6 knife blocks that you're given for like your wedding or whatever, and then you can tell this is I'm married. And then you like see those really nice knives on like TikTok, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get some of those, like that kind of thing. You're upgrading your knives along the way, but at the same time, think about it this way: what happens if you get stabbed 70 times as like a person? Generally, you die. So maybe that's. You finished that character arc.
Yeah, there is a game, Blades in the Dark,
Oh,
that has that sort of like your character can just get stressed out enough that they're just not playable anymore.
Yeah.
They get so much money they
Just
retire.
Yes, or they retire. Yeah, that
That's
for
resolving
sure can be resolving.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to where we can find it and that.
Yes. So I will once again start over here with the Dungeon Meowster.
I'm the Dungeon Meowster. Olan. You can find me at the Dungeon Meowster on Instagram only. I boycott everything else. I just don't have time or energy or capacity.
Yeah.
Goblins and Growlers. I'm on the Quick Roll podcast. There's other things too. I don't know. Follow me. I'll throw things out there if you like them, and if not, you'll have lots of pictures of cats.
My name is Noah again. You can find me on Twitter, TikTok, and Twitch at my lawyer friend. And more importantly, I want everyone to pull out their phones and go to the podcast app that you use for the Forgotten Paths podcast. Literally tomorrow is our anniversary of releasing episodes. So
Don't forget.
Go enjoy it. They're 1-hour episodes. It's an amnesia campaign with 3 Twitch streamers. And it's very digestible, especially if you have to travel home at some point because you can't stay here.
Brandon, you can find me online at Wave Brandalore in a lot of places. Find me on the Goblins and Growlers Discord, bit.ly/Goblin Discord. We got a booth over in the vendor hall. It has a big banner. It says Goblins and Growlers on it. We got the Goblins and Growlers podcast, which is a TTRPG discussion podcast that this guy's been on a couple of times.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And then we have Quick Pro Roll, which is our actual play.
God, you're so much better
Yeah,
at this.
while you're on there looking up Forgotten Paths, you should also look up the Goblins and Growlers podcast and Quick Pro Roll.
My name is Gabriel Perez. You can find me on Instagram at Amethyst Audiomancer. I occasionally post there when I remember to. But I always read messages. You can also, like Brandon was saying, you can also find us on the Goblins and Growlers Discord. It's free Discord. It's super fun, very wholesome community. And in the Dungeons and Dragons chat this month, we're doing World Building Wednesdays, which are like group discussions, and this entire month is themed towards session 0 best practices and things like that.
Yeah. Also, if you swing, we didn't prepare for this, but if you swing over to the booth, you can get a nice free business card with a QR code on it, and you can just scan that, and it takes you to all our shit.
Right.
I'm so happy we have QR codes.
Not only that, but we'll be at the booth, so you can make fun of us.
Yeah.
We also have other panels. I was pulling it up. You have one today. We have Unlock Your Inner Performer, which we're doing with us, McLaughlin Taffy, some other people at 6 here in this room, talking about like how do you take the tabletop and how do you bring more of a performance aspect to it? Yeah. For
How
those
to
of us
be a goober or to be okay with
how to be a goober. And then we also have a panel that's going to be here called Quest for Privacy, which is run by Tush. She's Unreal, and it's apparently a tabletop game where we are going to be.
interactive.
She's given me no. She said it's going to be bad and evil, and that she doesn't want to tell me anything else. But I'm performing in it. So yes.
And then
definitely go see that.
also later today at 3 o'clock, I'm going to be in panels 3, talking about nothing related to tabletop. I'm going to be talking about streaming on Twitch after the DMCA apocalypse, or how to stream with music legally.
And if you don't want to remember any of that, you can go to Linktree/Goblins Growlers, and we have a picture of the schedule there, and you can also go over to the booth and you can pick up a free copy of our schedule.
One last thing for all you people who are GMs or players. Tomorrow we do have a bunch of GMs, including a handful of us, and also Eric from Who's Roll, doing help, my game is on fire, help me put it out, where it's just Q&A. So come in, like, if there's anything specific to your game that you really want to get to.
If you don't have time to go to that though, I'll spoil it for you and say the answer is talk to your players.
Yeah.
Or kick them out of your game.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.